Alright, so this webinar is going to be about costing, SOLIDWORKS' new module costing, and Designer Strike Back. So what is costing? Well, costing is an automatic manufacturing cost estimator. It helps designers make decisions based on manufacturing costs instead of just kind of guessing. It's more accurate than guessing. So it's a great tool to use. Helps to create more accurate quotes for customers, and it's got a quoting module in here that has a report that looks pretty cool. And the costs are up to date with every part change. You're actually watching the costs, increase or decrease depending on the way you model, the way that you're tying your parts together. And there's a sheet metal and machine part costing modules in here. We're going to kind of focus on the sheet metal. If anybody wants to see machining, we can talk about it. But the sheet metal is really good. And the costing comes in SOLIDWORKS Professional and Premium packages. So if you have Core, it isn't included, so you need to upgrade to Professional or Premium. So how does costing work? Well, it interprets geometry as how it will be manufactured, not designed. So it doesn't really use the feature tree for anything. It just looks at the geometry and says, all right, well, how's this going to be made? A hole? All right, well, you're not going to probably drill it. You might, for a sheet metal part, you would probably set it up as laser. You can also set up as drill if you want. And the nice thing about that is you don't need to have a SOLIDWORKS file. It can be an imported body, and you can run costing on it. So it's a nice little thing to do there. It uses templates that associate manufacturing features with their cost. So it's got a template in the background, which we will look at, that will allow you to go through and kind of customize your working environment to the way costing is going to be used. The costing information is contained inside the SOLIDWORKS part file. So it's all in one place. You don't have an extra database out there. It looks at it the first time, then adds it into costing, so it stays in there with it. So the problem is you can send that to a customer, and then they would have all your costing information. So that SOLIDWORKS thought about that. So you can remove that by doing a save as, and then choosing to remove the costing data. I'll show you where that's at here momentarily. All right, so SOLIDWORKS costing. Instantly estimate part costs. All right, well, let's take a look at this. Let's go back. Let's see here if I can. Let's get out of there. Let's go into here. All right, so here's our sheet metal part. You can see this one is designed inside of SOLIDWORKS, so I got all my SOLIDWORKS features. But like I said before, it doesn't need to be. It could be just an imported body. With sheet metal, it needs to recognize it as sheet metal. Let's come in here. I'm going to flatten it out just so we can see the flattened state. And I've got Enterprise controlling everything, so it's just saying I don't have access to it, which is okay. Turn that off. There's my flat pattern. All right, so where is costing? So I had a costing right here on my sheet metal toolbar. You can also come up here and you can find costing, so it'd be under Tools, SOLIDWORKS costing, sheet metal costing. Machining is grayed out because it knows you can't use machining right now. You can always use sheet metal. Another cool tool, in case anybody hasn't played with 2012 yet, up here top right, the search commands. If I can't find something, I can just start typing in sheet metal. All right, well, there's sheet metal costing. I can hit the little arrows or the eyeglasses right here, and it's going to take my cursor over there and point to it and say, all right, well, right here, sheet metal costing. So let's fire that up. So we start it, and it's going to go in here on the right-hand side. It opens it in the task pane, and it's going to go through and update my, my information. So the very first thing here, if we look, I'm using an aluminum alloy. It uses different templates, so you can create custom ones in here. I've got one that's called Ace Metal Cutters. You can create different ones that you want, and I'll show you how to do that here momentarily. Then you come down here and you choose the different materials. You know, in our template we have steel, aluminum, and copper to choose from. I'm going to use aluminum, and then for aluminum we've got 6061. If we choose steel, we've got different ones to choose from, and when I change that material, look what happens. My price changes. Let's go to aluminum, 6061, and then the thickness from the template. Here inside of our template, here's the different thicknesses that we've set in there. It also says what our model thickness is, so we can verify that we are using the right thickness based on the model geometry. And then it fills out the material cost for us, which is again coming from the template. We can override it at this point if we wanted to. It tells us the full weight of our part, and that's what it's going to give us the cost for the material, because it's 13 US per kilogram. We're moving our way down here for the blank size, the area to cost. Alright, so it's using the bounding box right now. We can change that. We can say we'll just use the flat pattern, or we can use a custom sheet size or custom area of whatever we wanted to use. The bounding box is probably the best method because you got all that scrap, it's not going to figure that in. And you can set an offset to change all that information if you want. Moving down here for the quantity. So right now everything's based on a quantity of 100. So we've got 100 parts and the lot size is 100. So we're going to run all 100 parts at one time to get that done. I'll show you in a minute when we change that how it's going to affect the cost and maybe why. So the markup and discount, one more under here, is we can, say for our markup we want to increase it by 10% of the total cost, maybe for a shop rate or something, or increase the material cost alone. We can fudge the numbers a little bit there if you wanted to. And then down here at the bottom, here's our estimated part cost. So right now we are estimating this at $64.62 to make each one of these parts. And we can set a baseline, which we will here. So I'll come in here and say, all right, we'll set that as my baseline. It's going to go in there, calculate the flat, and set it as a baseline. All right, so now there's my baseline price. Right here underneath of that, I've got a breakdown of where this price is coming from. Well, it's coming from the material. That's $17 and some change. That's 28% of our total cost. And in manufacturing, it's 72% of our total cost, which is $46, almost $47 worth. So that's what it's telling us here on the right-hand side for this task pane. If we go here to the left-hand side, we get a new tab, the Sheet Metal Costing Manager, on the left. So if we look down here, we can see the setup. I've got a number of 3, a bunch of different folders, and 57 cents per US dollar. Let me expand that out and kind of show you what this is. First one is the powder coat. If I hold my cursor over it, it tells me that it's going to take 20 cents because it's $20 per lot to set it up, and there's 100 in there, so it's going to be 20 cents. So these are my machining setups. Because we're going to powder coat it, and then to cut everything out, we're going to use the laser, which is $25 divided over 100 is going to be 25 cents a part. And then same thing for our bin machine. It's $12.50, which is going to come out to be 12.5 cents per part. The cutting paths, we got 32 different cutting paths for a total value of $13.27. We can look at each one of these. The very first one, it's kind of the biggest in here, and it's 2,521.69 millimeters, the perimeter around this whole outside. And you can see in the graphic area, it highlights that edge. So at 1 cent per millimeter, it's going to cost us $12.61. So it rounds up a little bit, to be on the safe side. And you can go through each one of these, and you can see, all right, well, that one is this bottom hole down here. In the bottom. And you can go through each one and kind of see where the cost is coming from. If that's a big cut area, so it's going to cost a little bit more. So I'm going to add all those up. And then the next folder is we got the bins. We got 10 bins, $5 total, so each one's 50 cents. So we got 50 cents a bin. And you can click on these and highlight which bin it's talking about. And then we got a custom operation in here. So for every part, we're going to powder coat it, and it's $10 a part to powder coat. So it's going to cost $10 a part. So it kind of adds up all these machining processes and gives me the total manufacturing cost of $46. All right, let's go back to our PowerPoint. So it's going to instantly estimate our part cost. Quickly access design change impacts. So what's going to happen when we make some design changes? All right, so let's go in here and let's make some design changes. Maybe these holes right here, these are cuts right now. Maybe I want those to be punched holes. Well, I got a configuration set up. So let's show this configuration. Now these are punched holes instead of machined. And it goes in there and you can see it dropped our cost, it calculated, and it dropped about 8%. So we were at $64.62. Now we're at $59.58. If we look here on the left-hand side, our tree has changed a little bit as well. My setup, I've got 4 now instead of 3 because we have this last one, the lightning holes. And then our cut paths, that dropped in price a little bit because we're not doing these cutouts right there. Those are going to be punched. And we have a new library feature, these 2 punches. So $1 per stroke, and it's going to take 1 stroke to punch all that out from our dies. So we can add those in there as well. Well, let's say we maybe want to make another design change. All right, well, we can make that on the fly. Let's say I take this flange and instead of that value, we want to make that actually, let's go 60, make it 60. So we're going to increase the size a little bit. So it graphically changes it to 60, and now it's going to go through and update my results. And there it changed my price just a little bit. We can unpin this so we don't see that all the time, and I can go back to my other tab here. We can spin this around to whatever I want. We can click on maybe different dimensions in here and change whatever we want. So 25.4, let's maybe make that that top edge. Let's go 30. So we'll increase the size. So we can go through and kind of design and work in this process, change things, and once it updates, we can go back to our costing and see what our price difference is. All right, now we're only at 7% increase or change from our baseline. So we can kind of work in that way. We can also come in here, we can change our material. We can say instead of aluminum, we can choose something different in here. We can choose different thicknesses of our parts. So we'll go through with that whole process. Another cool thing is, all right, well, let's say I want my total number of parts. Right now I've got 100. Well, let's say we bump that down and we change that to 50. Our price went up. Well, why did it go up? Well, that's because it was configuring the setup cost on 100 parts. Now it's only going to be doing it on 50. So it's half the value, half the run. And instead of our lot size, maybe instead of 50, we're going to do 2 groups of 25. And now our price went up even more because we're going to have to set the machines up twice. So we can go through and we can really calculate and determine what our best method is to determine that. And so a whole run of 100. We can also come in here and say maybe these cut paths are a little bit different. Maybe we don't want that to be maybe one of these holes. Maybe we don't want that to be laser cut. Well, I can right mouse click on that, and instead of laser, we have some different options. We could come in there and I could water jet it. I choose water jet. You can see the price of it, it's a little bit more expensive. Instead of 1 cent, it's going to be 2 cents. All right, well, maybe that's a critical hole, or we want to use water jet on that for some reason. And I can increase the price, and now I'm at 5% cost. We can take this one and we say we could plasma cut it, whatever we want. The bins, all right, we could put on a different bin machine if we want. Change it like that. Custom operations, we can apply a cost override, remove it. And then this icon right here, we can add a custom operation, something different we want to do. So I come in here and say instead of powder coat, we could just spray paint everything. All right, so let's add that in there. And let's take that powder coat, let's remove that custom operation. So by changing it from powder coat to just, spray paint, we dropped it down from our original cost 17%. All right, so why do I really care about this? Well, maybe I've got a new designer in there and they're not understanding, big impacts on my manufacturability of my parts and, our bottom line. Here they can actually go in here and say, all right, well, if I spray paint it or if I design this a little bit different instead of having these cutouts as dies, well, maybe I'll save some money in here. All right. And another icon down here in the bottom right is I can come in here and we can create a report. I already went through and I created a report for us. Let me grab that for us real quick. Fire it up in Word. And then here's the report that it can come out. And again, this can be customized to, your company's logos and, your layout, whatever you want it to look like. So this is just the default. So it's going to come in here and say what my model name is, the machining, the material, manufacturing process that we're going through, the weight, the blank size, and the lot. And then how much you're going to save, do the cut path. Down here for this report, here's our baseline that we're using. See what we changed from and to. So it's a nice layout, nice design to give us our total cost in there. And you can send this as a nice report, tie it to the part if you have a PDM system in there. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. And we can also simulate your manufacturing environments. All right, so this is going to be about the templates. Let's go in here. Let's kind of customize those templates and show you how to do that process. So the easiest way is if I start costing, I can come right here and say launch the template editor. I can also go here under SOLIDWORKS All Programs, or under Start All Programs, SOLIDWORKS 2012, SOLIDWORKS Tools, and then we have the costing template editor. It's the same thing right there. So let's come in here. I'm going to launch the costing template editor, and it's going to use the one that we have active right now. So right now we're going to use metric. Currency is going to be US dollars. Then we can change the period or comma. Right, so the general, not too big. Let's go to the setup cost. So we can see right here, we can add a new, setup machine in here, inspection, apply that, always include it, different options that we want to use. Here's the material. So here's all the different materials that we want to use. So here's my steels, here's the aluminums. So if I want to create a new one, I can say, well, let's come in here. We have a nice drop down. Let's say I want it to be aluminum alloy, and again, this is coming from the SOLIDWORKS material. Maybe I want, instead of 6061, let's do, it doesn't really matter which one. We got that alloy, just say T6, and now it's going to be one of our options to drop down. Well, let's look at the thickness then. So for all of our different materials, we have to set up a thickness to use. So maybe for our aluminum alloys, and we have a 6061 in here, and we've got 1.4, 1.6, 1, 1.2. We could add in 1.8, and the price of that, this is where we'd come in here and we'd change it. That's going to be $13. We can also filter. I can say just show me all of my aluminum alloys and whatever thicknesses we want. So I can quickly come in here and change my costs, because you know those are always updating, always changing, never going to be the same. So you might have to come in here once in a while and add that in. And then for our operations, here under our cut, so our default is always going to be the laser. And so we could add in a new machine in here and say what the setup cost is going to be. Same thing with our stroke machine here. If we're doing a punch, it's going to be $13 for our setup, and our tapped hole, drill hole. And then for our aluminum alloys, you can kind of see what it's going to go through in here. For each one of those materials and the thicknesses, our cut method, and then what the price of it's going to be. So for our laser, it's going to be, 0.004 US dollars per millimeter. So it's got this whole table. You do that for, we got 3 different cuttings. So our laser, water jet, and plasma, you'd have to set the price for each one of those. You can see all the different ones we have down there. Again, we can, search on that, cutting length, filter on different things in there if we want. For our bend, so we only have one bend machine in there. And then our setup cost, and you can do the same thing in there for all of the different materials. And those library features, you saw I had those lightning holes, so I'd have to create the same name in there so it can find it and map to it. And the setup cost is going to be $7.50. And if I look at those aluminum alloys, that lightning hole, that was $1 per stroke. There's where it's coming from, $1 per stroke right here. And for custom, we can say, well, here's our powder coat. Maybe I want a custom to be dipped. For selection type, let's do the whole part. Cost is going to be $5. And our setup cost, we don't really have to do much setup, so let's say it's $10. And let's say that's divided over the entire lot. Always include no. So we can go through there and set all that information up, and we can hit save, or I can come in here and save as a different name. I'm just going to save it as it is. Let's save. There we go, and we can close it down. So now we can come in here, and for my aluminum alloys, let's rebuild it, refresh everything. I'm going to close it down, and let's start it back up. It saves all the information in there. Oh, I changed the name of it. We can kind of see the whole setup price in that, and we can add a new custom operation if I want. I can add in setup cost in there. Apply cost override if I know what it's going to be, $10 or $1 for something else. One other thing that I wanted to show you was I have all this, costing in this one part. Up here underneath my configuration properties, I've got the cost of this part calculated in here. So if I drop this into an assembly, since it's got it tied here to the file properties, I can push that to my EPDM system, or my PDM system, in this case Enterprise, or I can push this to a drawing. In this case I'm going here to my assembly, and I can come in here and we can show with the assembly visualization what my total cost is. So I have this one part, which is right there, and it's showing that configuration. If we switch to the other one, it's got, a different cost, $59 applied to it. So I can add in all my different costs if I want to, and I can color code that with the assembly visualization. So if I put costs in here, we can see what the most expensive parts are. So I can, change this timeline, kind of drag it up there. Say I want to see everything that's more expensive than $59. Hides everything else, and there's everything that's above $59 in price. This is a pretty cool tool in here. We can add in different costs, weights, different things we want to, kind of save as. I can save this as a display state, or I choose save as, and I can save this as an XML, text document, PDF, If we save it right there to my desktop, hit save, and it's going to go out there. It will. Let me find that. I'll open it up. It's going to go in there. It's going to save this out as the quantity, the total cost, in a nice Excel format. So now I can either import this into maybe an ERP system, send this to the purchasing people, do quite a few different things with this. It's a nice layout, nice setup that you can do with that. Almost like a bill of materials, but with some different information. And we can close that out and it takes the colors back away. One thing I said, it saves all of this data inside, all this costing data inside of my part. And I said we can do a file save as to get rid of it. If I do a file save as, okay. Let's do a save as. Here we get this option because we have costing information in here. I can say save without costing data. I'm going to save a copy of it. As the minute I check that to save as copy, that gets grayed out and you have to save a copy of it. And it actually changes the name to no cost. I can name it whatever I want, but it just adds that to the background just so you can't overwrite your existing one. So it's a nice little tool right there for you. And the machining one, you can see here from the image, it's very, very similar to the sheet metal one, where you can put in the tool diameter, the feed and the speed, the tool depth that you want to go through and do, and your machines on each one to set up. And you set that up one time, and then you don't have to change it unless your inside part or your inside environment's changing. Then you can update that as needed. So right now, currently, SOLIDWORKS costing is only for sheet metal and machining parts. It does not support turning right now. It does not do 3-axis milling. It only does 2.5 axis. It doesn't do injection molding or multi-body parts right now. So hopefully here in maybe the next couple of releases they'll develop it. Since this is the very first release, it's very good for what it does. It's definitely getting there. It's a great tool. So that's all I have for everybody. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to go ahead and type those in, and I'll be watching for them, and we can try to answer anything that you guys have. Anything that you want to see again? Anything that didn't make sense? All right, well, since nobody has any questions, I guess I did a pretty good job of covering everything in here. Well, I asked that everybody, I hope that everybody had a good time, and we have quite a few other webinars going on throughout the months. We have about 2 or 3 each month on different topics, different things for you guys to use and possibly do. I definitely ask that you watch them. They're short. They're not going to take all day. Oh, we do have one. Can you add welding costing? You can't actually add welding in there, but you can add a custom operation for welding and add that in there. So you can always go in there and open this back up. And if I know I'm going to weld something, you could add a custom operation in there, custom features. Because with welding, if we would actually put a weld symbol, maybe a lot of people don't know this. If I come in here and let's do a weld bead, I can say let's put a weld bead between, let's say, here and here. It's not going to let me do it on those faces. Let me think here. I want to do a multi-body. With the welder, you can actually go in there and get material length. So I can come in here and add in a custom operation. We could say new. Let's say this is going to be weld. The setup cost for that, if we know what it is maybe $1 per part, and the operation cost is maybe $10 per part. So it's going to be $11. I could add it in there like that so that it at least gets, figured into my total manufacturing cost in there. But very good question. Very good question. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, like I was saying, there's quite a few different webinars to watch and to view. Definitely come to our blogs. We're updating those, about once a week. Somebody's writing something new. Actually, every couple days, somebody's writing something new on there. So if there's no other questions, we'll end right there. We've got one more. Maybe take the weld length to some edge. I'm not understanding what your question. Take the weld length to some edge. Like if you knew what that edge length was, if you click on any edge inside of SOLIDWORKS here in the bottom right, you can tell what the length of it is. It's going to kind of do the measure tool for you. So if I know, all right, well that's 59 millimeters long, I could come in here and modify that weld. I could edit it. I could add that into into my template if I wanted to. All right, well that's all I have, and I have no other questions. I guess we will end. All right, well again, thanks everybody for watching, and if you have any other questions, just let us know. Thanks.